Things first, as a courtesy to those in attendance, please place your cell phone on silent or vibrate. This is the meeting of the City of San Angelo Civic Events Board. First things first, do we have any public comment? There we go. The board takes public comment on all items in the regular agenda. Public input on a regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the board at this time. The board may request an item to be placed on a future agenda or for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment.
I'll start with public comment. First, I want to say make sure we speak into the mic today since we want to make sure we catch everything. Just a reminder for everybody, that's all. First off, I want to say we've hired Alexis Trevino. She's our new hiree for Civic Events. She's an event service rep 1. She's been with us for a couple of months, so she's well into the job and learning the job at this time. So did want to give the board an update on that. Lately, we have myself, Carl White, as well as Mr. Al Torres. We've visited several convention centers as well. Abilene, we took a tour of Abilene's Midlands Convention Center as well as Wichita Falls Event Center. So we went to their convention center, checked out their Coliseum as well as their exhibit hall just to get some ideas of these other convention centers and how they're running too and how they operate. So they were great visits. We had some great guests that led us around, and we enjoyed the tour. We actually enjoyed it. We learned a lot of different things. Everybody works a little bit differently depending on their city and how things operate. So the next thing is we did complete the landscape and irrigation project that is finally has been complete for the convention center. If you walk around the area, you can finally see we have green grass in the front of the convention center, and it's actually pretty nice for us that it looks good. We've been complimented about it, and I do want to say thank you to the Parks Division for definitely helping us out completely with the project from A to Z all the way through. They've been very helpful, and we just hope that we wanted to make a better impression for the convention center, and we hope that making sure that we have some green grass out there will be the start of something. So that's all I have for public comment. Do you all have any?
I have a question. On your trips to the other convention centers, did you pick up some really good ideas?
Yes, we did pick up some good ideas just off of, just how they operate. And like I said, every convention center that we went to, none of them worked the same, whether how they were budgeted, where the funds were coming from, the percentages, there was just a lot of different details. And plus, Wichita Falls, it's nice. It's a very nice venue. It's awesome how they have everything in just one area. It's not having to go pretty far. There's a Marriott hotel that's there on site as well that has the convention center. Then you have your exhibition hall too as well, and then their Coliseum Arena, which they had a rodeo going on at this time too. So, that was an eye opener and a great experience for sure.
Cool.
And we always ask them, what did you do right and what did you, look back, what could you have done better? And at each of the locations, one of the takeaways I had was you can never underestimate how much storage you need for tables, chairs, everything, lecterns, all that stuff, and the ease of access to get to it, to put it out where you need to put it, things like that. We have a whole list of things that we learn.
I would imagine that each one has universal challenges. There's always something that all of them have in common.
Yeah, the one thing, like you said, that was in common was storage. Yeah. Everybody could use more storage area, more storage space.
My apologies for being a little tardy. Seems like since I retired, I can't seem to get to anywhere on time anymore. I don't know what that's all about, but sorry, guys and lady. Apologies.
Hey,
The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. And I would like to make a motion for consideration of approving the January 25th, 2024 meeting minutes. Second. All those in favor? Say
Aye.
aye. Any opposed? It's approved. Meeting minutes approved. Next is the regular agenda. And so we will go to the presentation of the monthly financial report and events calendar.
So in everybody's package, you should have the Civic Events Fund 410. For our Civic Events Fund 410 balance right now, as you can see, it's a little bit over $1 million. Restricted for facility use fees, we have approximately $360,000 in that account, and this fund balance is as of July 31st, 2022. Going to the calendar, you all should have the calendar in your packets too as well. I didn't put the July in there, but July bookings, we did have a total of 52 bookings. August bookings is a total of 57. And then also in September bookings is a total of 57 as well. So, I mean, it's been doing pretty steady. It's about the same numbers that we've been averaging from last year as well. Any questions or comments on the financials or the calendar?
Are we pretty much on track as from this, considering last year's
Yes.
Bookings to this year's?
Yes, sir.
There's no big change one way or the other?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Then we'll move on to the Civic Events Advisory Board training.
So this training will be done by the city attorney, Ms. Teresa James.
Good morning. I'm Teresa James. I'm the city attorney, and before COVID, I would come to this board more often, but then during COVID, everything got disjointed, and then I haven't really been invited back, and I just lose track of it. So I'm very happy to be here today. It's been a while since this board has done civic events training, board training, which means that there's probably not a lot of drama happening in the board, because once the drama starts happening is when they start inviting me to these board meetings. So I'm glad to be here today. I want to talk a little bit about what your authority is, talk a little bit about hot tax money, and then talk about open meetings and some concerns that we sometimes see there. The authority for this particular board is found in our Code of Ordinances. It's under Article 2.07, Division 1 and Division 9. And the purpose of this board is to advise council on members of policy. I know in the past, this board wanted to have final authority on some things, and there really is no final authority. This is completely an advisory board. You make recommendations to Carl and his staff, also to city council on occasion, but they can overrule that at any time. You also advise the city manager and the representatives on administrative matters, which I think is a lot of what we talk about here. And then you may enact some rules and regulations. That's been done in the past, but council always has the authority to take a look at those and change them to how they see fit. So again, advisory is the key word here. All these members are appointed by council. You do have term limits like all of our boards have in the city right now. You're not supposed to have more than quarterly meetings unless you're directed by the city manager. I'm not sure exactly how often you are meeting, but generally we don't track meetings unless you're not meeting at all. So if you're meeting more than 4 times, that's really not a problem. Quorum is 4 members, and absences from 3 members in a calendar year is deemed to be a resignation. We don't take any action other than notifying council that you've resigned your position and then fill it. I think there is a little bit of grace given to people who have legitimate reasons for being gone. We struggle sometimes to find board members, so we try to be lenient in these policies, but if we're having a hard time meeting quorum because of absences, we certainly do want to find members who can be here. So all of our boards and all of our board members have to follow our conflict of interest policy. It's not as much of a concern for this board because you don't actually allocate funds to anybody. You might discuss how city money is spent on city projects, but there's no allocation of funds to the public. But sometimes you'll have some input on contracts with the city. But generally, the rule is you can't participate in any item where you or one of your close family members, which can include siblings, parents, children, have financial or personal interest in the property concerned. Again, this isn't really as much concern for this board as it is others in the city, but something I do want you to be aware of. And if that ever comes up and you don't know if you have a conflict, just give me a call and we'll talk through it. If you did have a conflict, you would recuse yourself from not only the vote, but also the participation. And so we ask that people leave the room. You can go sit in the back and watch through the window if you want to watch the proceeding, but we ask you not be present in the room during that time. So I want to talk a little bit about hotel occupancy tax. We're authorized to collect this tax under Chapter 351 of the tax code. It can only be collected on rooms that are primarily used for sleeping, and there is a list of exceptions for when it's not collectible. For instance, if the room is rented for more than 30 days, then it's no longer considered a hotel room, so we can't collect hotel occupancy tax on that. That became a real issue during COVID. And also government use also became an issue during COVID, and we're still fighting some battles related to that. We can and do take legal action to collect those taxes. Brandon Dyson, who's my deputy city attorney, is the attorney in my office who generally files those actions and interacts with the hotel owners. And pretty much every year he's been here, he's collected enough in hotel tax to pay his salary. So he is very good at this, and he, working with the finance department, we try to stay on top of it so people don't get so far behind that it's just almost impossible for them to collect. This can only be used to promote tourism in the convention and hotel industry. The number one question I get is, can I use hotel occupancy tax for this thing? And it's pretty restricted. But the restrictions are interpreted constantly either by courts or by the Texas Attorney General's office. So every time I get asked a question on hotel occupancy tax, even if I think I know the answer, I'm always like, let me research it, because somebody may have come up with a new interpretation of a word that changes what my answer might be. But basically, we have in Texas what's called the Texas two-step. The very first thing is the expenditure related to putting heads in beds. If you cannot get over that hurdle, we don't even go to whether or not it's an authorized use. People like to go straight to the authorized uses and say, well, I'm an arts program, or I'm a historic program, or there's meetings that occur here, but we don't ever get to the first hurdle of whether or not that program is actually putting heads in beds, or is it mostly just local people. So the hotel occupancy tax question that comes to me most from this board is related to either this building or the River Stage. And some people try to lump the River Stage into this particular provision, that we can use it for the acquisition of sites and the construction, improvement, enlarging, equipping, repairing, operation, and maintenance of convention center facilities. The convention center has a very specific definition, and it's facilities that are primarily used to host conventions and meetings. When I first got here, all of our board meetings were held in this room, and then we did an evaluation on the use of this building, since we do use hot tax to maintain it, to determine whether or not this building was still being primarily used to host conventions and meetings that, again, put heads in beds. And we realized that most of the uses at that time were city board meetings and city meetings. So we have since equipped the mezzanine at City Hall to host most board meetings. And so that brings that ratio of use of this facility back into lawful, where it's lawful to use this money on the convention center. We do allow this particular board to still meet in here, and that's much to the chagrin of others who want to be sitting up there on the dais instead of on like a U table. But that's because the whole purpose of this board is to bring events to our city and to put those heads in beds. So we think it's related enough to the purpose that it's okay to keep you guys here. But if you ever want to try the mezzanine, just let Carl know. It's cold in there, though. The word meeting also has a very specific definition, and that's buried within the convention center definition. And it's a gathering of people that enhance and promote tourism in the convention and hotel industry. So again, it's not every meeting. If it's just a meeting of local folks and nobody from out of town ever attends that meeting, we can't count that as a meeting for the purposes of hot tax. So when you put all that together, you can see how all the parts move. Again, it's a facility hosting conventions and meetings that enhance and promote tourism. So is there any questions on any of that before we move forward? You guys all seem like you're pretty up to speed on what the hotel tax. rules are. All right, when we talk about the Texas Open Meetings Act, council does require that all of our boards, even if they're not statutory boards, to follow the Texas Open Meetings Act. So the general rule is that every regular, special, or called meeting has to be open to the public and comply with requirements of the act, and you cannot convene a meeting without quorum. One of the issues I have with smaller boards is sometimes they want to meet in very small spaces, in boardrooms or even sometimes offices where there's just not room for the public to come. And so we don't allow that because that's not considered to be open to the public. The space is, of course, perfect, and we can record both here and in the mezzanine. The other thing you're going to see is we're recording more meetings now, and we're putting those on our public access channel. So while this meeting may not have been on the channel before, it might be in the future. That is to comply with some rules regarding the money that we use to build our channel. There's a certain amount of new programming that has to occur over a period of time, and so to make sure we're keeping that rotation fresh, we have to broadcast more meetings. Because this is an advisory board, you don't have the ability to go into executive session. And sometimes boards they really want to talk about some things in executive session, not necessarily because there is a reason to talk about it or an exception under the law, but because it's uncomfortable to have some conversations in public. But advisory boards are not allowed to go into executive session. And then, of course, meeting requires proper posting, which staff does a very good job of taking care of. Violations of the act can result in fines and/or incarceration, though I think there's only been one Texas official in history that's been incarcerated for a violation of the Open Meetings Act. And there are 4 ways to violate the act. 2 of them don't apply to this board because you can't meet in executive session, but those 2 are knowingly conspiring to circumvent the act by meeting in numbers less than quorum. So that's sometimes called daisy chain meetings. So if 3 of you meet and then 3 more meet, and then somebody talks to the last one, then you've all had a meeting, even though you weren't all in the same place. Or calling or participating in a closed meeting. Subcommittees, if you have any subcommittees, just make sure they're not a quorum so you don't violate any of the meeting rules. Location, again, has to be accessible and must be large enough space to accommodate the public. The other thing we're really focusing on now is the ADA, so we want to make sure that it's accessible not just in open, but also accessible in terms of the ADA. Some issues you should be aware of, social media. There are some opinions out there that say everybody commenting on a social media post about something that comes under the purview of this board constitutes a meeting. So you should be very careful about commenting on any posts that are related to the business you're doing on behalf of the city. And also, public comment. Are there any issues related to open meetings? You guys have questions? Nope? Okay.
Teresa, on
Yeah.
the subcommittee meetings, it states that you have to have a gathering place large enough for the public. Does that mean that those subcommittee meetings should be?
Did it say that? It
Oh, you
shouldn't say
didn't?
that. No, it's just the location of the
Oh,
meetings,
just-
the actual meeting, not subcommittees.
Okay.
So subcommittee
Okay, sorry.
occurs, yeah.
Got it.
So subcommittees are not open to the public. No, they're not. But any notes that you might take during a subcommittee meeting would be available under public information requests, so you should be aware of that. All right, public comment. Let's go back to this. You may or may not be aware that council passed some new public comment rules that are going to be applied uniformly over all of our boards. Some of our boards had public comment at the end of the meeting. They want public comment at the beginning of all meetings, but there is going to be a sign-in process where the person's going to have to sign in and indicate what item on the agenda they want to speak to, and they'll be called in the order that they sign up. It doesn't appear there's a lot of public comment at this. There's never been, since I've been here, a lot of public comment at this particular meeting. But if there were an item where a lot of people are commenting and some of the people are not residents of the city, they would always go last. We're going to give priority to people who actually live here. And then one thing that happens during public comment a lot, not just here, but really everywhere, is citizens want to use it as a time to interrogate staff or ask a lot of questions and get their questions answered. That's really not the point of public comment. It's really a time for them to give you information that you need to make your decision. If they have questions for staff or they have questions for you, that can occur outside the meeting. And particularly at council and some of like the boards like Planning Commission, we are very stringent on that, and we direct people that it's not a time to ask questions. You can talk to staff in the hall. But it is something that you should be aware of. It's really not appropriate to have that kind of dialogue during the public comments. If questions are asked about issues not on the agenda, then you really shouldn't have a dialogue about that. You should give a statement of fact, tell them you'll put it on another agenda, or just give the policy or whatever it is that they're talking about. But you can't have that interaction, and you certainly can't make decisions. If a question is directed by a member giving public comment and the chair or a member of the board feels like it's a valid question, you are free to ask that question to staff on their behalf. But we just don't want the person who's making public comment to be doing that. All right, that's all I have. I try to keep it short and sweet. I know this is not anybody's favorite item on an agenda, but is there any questions? All right, I appreciate you guys.
Teresa,
Yes,
did you want to mention about, did you mention about public comment, signing up for public comment?
yeah.
You did?
You were
Okay.
rubbing your head while I said that. I've noticed. You were not paying that much attention.
Teresa,
Yes.
I don't know that now's the appropriate time, but is there a way to kind of get better informed on just where the hot taxes go?
Yeah, I
within
mean,
the
we
city
have,
budget?
there is a page in the budget that I believe talks about that. We're actually going to be taking an item at the next agenda to allocate some of our hot funding, but I'm sure we can get you some information if you would like that on a quarterly basis or monthly basis.
Well,
It really is allocated once a year, though during our,
I'm just curious,
Budget
as somebody who also works in economic development and tourism and just trying to make better sense of all that so that I can communicate that clearly when I've got questions.
yeah, I'm going to volunteer the collective us to get that to them. Yeah? Information on where the hot tax goes, how it's allocated. Yeah, I think there is a whole slide that we do at the budget
Nice.
meeting every year, so.
And when's that budget meeting?
We've already
City
had the
council-
budget meetings,
City council approval?
Yeah, the second reading of the budget approval is the next council meeting, but we're also having a separate item at that meeting to allocate some hot funds to some other organizations that used to be under SACAC.
Cool,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay, moving on to the fourth item on the agenda. It's an update on the Bill Ayler Senior Memorial River Stage renovations.
Yeah, I said, let me start. So if you notice, the caption's written as an update. So we can't get a formal recommendation from the board, but we do want input about where we're at and where we're headed with this project. We've been talking about this project for 3-4 years. It's been a while. And we've kind of evolved what improvements that would include. We've done site visits. We've had discussions with the board. Coughing. We've had direction from city council where to go. The last direction we got from city council was to go ahead with prepare phase 1 or year 1 improvements and design those. Those have been designed. When having those done, looking at the budget, we're not going to talk about the figures, but just in the budget in general, we had funding to do phase 1, year 1 project, but we had a little bit more. And so there was a question, is there anything from phase 2 or year 2 that we could move forward into phase 1 if we could afford it? And the thing that bubbled up to the top, I think primarily from council, was the shade canopy. So we started to research that and see what that cost would be. I think we plugged in $500,000 or $700,000 originally, and then we looked at how far could we go with that amount of money, and then if we added more money, how much farther could we go? And we've got slides that will show that. But if we did the full amount, we don't have enough in the budget to do that for the shade canopy and phase 1. And so we'll show you all this. But we took a discussion item, to COSA DC, the Development Corporation, a month ago. They have some interest in the project and funding the project, but there was a mixed feeling about the shade canopy. So we want your opinion about the shade canopy, whether we should do it or not. This is just Carl speaking, but I think it's a generational gap kind of thing. The younger folks probably care less about the shade canopy, and older folks are probably more interested in having a shade canopy. It would definitely help the comfort level, but it's definitely going to change the look of what the river stage looks like. So we need to get your input. We want to hear from each one of y'all about this project, what's in the project, and about the shade canopy. And if we had anything in phase two that you think could move forward, if it had enough funding, also that opinion. And my preference is we get this project going, because as we've been talking about it for a while, and I want to get things done. The ideal time to do this project is basically the downtime, which is November through March. So that November's coming soon, so I want to get this project going.
Do we have a rendering of what the shade
Yeah,
canopy
well,
would
he'll
look
show
like?
it.
Okay.
I kind of interjected myself. He's going to show you all that. But
Okay.
I just kind of want to set the scene for what this discussion is about.
Okay.
So we're just going to go a little bit over the project summary. Obviously, most of you all are new to the board, so this will be the first time basically talking about the River Stage project. I think maybe Dale possibly is the only one that's on the board that whenever this, or you are also on the board
I
as
met
well.
in April we went down the stage.
Oh, yes, but the first recommendation came in favor of just the River Stage renovations.
Gotcha.
That was just for 2023. But yes, we did do that in April too as well. So our board made a recommendation in favor of the River Stage renovations on January 26, 2023. That's when we first met about this. Then City Council did approve of the River Stage renovations on March 21st, 2023. Now, during that time, from March 21st, 2023 to now, everything has been about getting quotes, engineering, all the other details that were needed. So we did meet at the River Stage in April to discuss some of the shade canopy as well as what he was just discussing, what he was just talking about. But I want to go over some of the things that we're looking at for the plan. So if you look at this is also in your packet as well. A would be the new production office. The production office is highly needed. It's for the promoters. Actually, this is very helpful for promoters. They need a space to be able to go to be able to take care of their business. We also need to be able to expand our green room. That would be B. And then also the new storage addition would also be C. That's one of the biggest things that we do need because we're actually running out of storage space at the River Stage with all the chairs and tables that we do have out there as well. New covered dock would be in D. Highly needed. Production that does come in, they always discuss that we don't have the proper load in for them, so we do want to make sure that we make it a little bit more easier and effective for them. ADA accessible toilet, obviously, we all do know that we've been real heavy on our ADA accommodations, so we want to make sure that we take care of that. F, new accessible ramp. Also, G would be new storage. That'll be additional storage right there. And then H is the existing green room that we do have currently right now. And then J would be all of our mechanicals. So we're just going to discuss a little bit of the ADA.
Could you go back to that other slide? On the ramp, I understand, I'm guessing that the ramp is to help with the storage, facilitating moving things up to the stage from the...
It's also for ADA accessibility.
Okay, up to the stage.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you get to the loading dock, is there going to be any work there to help with moving in equipment? Because
I do want to add, it's not shown on here, but the newer version has an additional ramp back here in the back, off of this back door, so that equipment that needs to be wheeled on there that can't be offloaded off of a truck, they'll be able to come in from back here and ramp up. Also, if you have employees or staff, this ramp here in the front is primarily for the public. If you have events going on and then somebody needs to get up on stage, or, they call somebody to come up on stage, we don't want them to have to go around to this ramp back here. So that's what this ramp in the front is for. This other ramp in the back is primarily for workers, for staff, for getting things up onto the stage. So it's not shown on here, but we actually have 2 handicap ramps to the stage level.
Okay, yeah, and understand on the accessibility, but also in terms of loading in equipment and loading out equipment, that seems, and back there in that area, there's just grass, right? Is that going to be covered up?
No, this is the driveway. This is the driveway that goes over, that the buses and trucks
Right.
come in on. There's an overhead door right here, so
Correct.
everything gets unloaded or loaded right through there.
Correct.
So basically, this dock just gives them right now, the garage door just drops at the end of the building. So this is going to give them a place where they can offload onto a dock and then carry stuff inside as they need to.
Okay.
But the truck will be able to back up to that and offload. It's got dock bumpers and everything, so.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So we can go over a few of the ADA improvements that we're looking at right now. Trying to accessible walkways, improving accessibility to the stage and back of stage. That's what he was just discussing in the front and in the back. Accessible elements in the dressing room bathrooms, which is needed as well. Improving the bathroom reach ranges and adding accessible toilet stalls and lavatories. Some of the additional proposed renovations include I'll just read through these. Interior remodel, also the new storage wing, expand terrace seating, new irrigation, expand existing ticketing and existing concessions, create a new entry plaza, new food canopy by stage, multiple mini concession stands, and the shade canopy, as well as the new covered dock, upgrade HVAC, fix drainage issues, level entry drive for buses, improve the sidewalks, and relocate the fencing on the west side.
That's it. Thanks for coming.
Yes. Alternate renovations would include new bathroom buildings, new concession building, new main entry and ticketing. The entry off of Avenue A. Plaza would be shared use with the pool, accessible route to the plaza level, shared pavilion, and digital signage. So if you see here in phase one, that's the green area that we're looking at currently. Phase two would be the gold area. So here's some renderings that I just received from Al Torres. This is for the addition of the storage in the dock as well. So if you see on here, I know it's a little blurry, but you can see that over here, this is where the dock addition is. And then on this other side is where the storage is. We're adding additional storage on this side. Also, this is how the ticket office and the concessions expansion, and you can also see the shade canopy for the entryway as well. Here's some renderings for the shade canopy that you all were discussing earlier. So I just want to take my time on this part of it if you all have any questions.
How does that impact the view for the people that are behind in the grass area?
Say it one more time.
How does this impact the people who are sitting in the grass area behind
The line of sight.
line of sight? Yes.
Yeah, there's one rendering that
Yeah.
shows that there is a clear line of sight.
Yeah, if you look at this drawing right here, we had them calculate the hill, and so if somebody's standing at the top of the hill, we wanted to make sure that the line of sight, the canopy is high enough that somebody at the top of the hill can still see the entirety of the stage.
What about the balcony of the art museum?
Yeah, to be honest, that's not something we had considered. Somebody on the balcony at the art museum, would they still be able to see the stage?
They can't really
didn't
see the
pay.
stage from up there anyway.
Yeah, and they didn't pay for a
That's
ticket
what I
for the
said, they
event.
pay for a
They
ticket.
didn't pay for a
Yeah,
ticket.
Yeah.
Then,
Yeah, the people who go to that event at the museum, and it's usually the July 3rd event, are not really interested in what's going on the stage or too much of what goes
Yeah.
on. They're just there to enjoy the museum and watch the fireworks.
So I do want to mention that since piggyback off of July 3rd, so obviously this would affect fireworks under having the shade canopy. It would affect that.
So this
They
is
wouldn't be able
permanent. We
to.
had talked
Sure.
about something that had moved out. This will stay.
Yes.
It's a, oh, so it's
And
a
it's
permanent
West
structure.
Texas
Yes.
Tested.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. I mean,
Will it
I've
burn up
got
in
horse trailers
110
at the
degrees?
roofs.
Yeah.
Yes and no. I mean, there are warranties, but the West Texas sun, West Texas hail, those are factors to consider. This is a fabric canopy. Typically, I'm told by them that they typically last about 15 years, sometimes 20, at which time it would have to be replaced. Of course, the
No,
cost.
no tin roof? That's-
Yeah, no. The cost of the fabric is as nearly as high as the cost of what we're paying in advance, because the structure is a big part of the cost right now. But yeah, they do have some warranties in place for hail damage and things like that. So before we went and signed on the dotted line, we'd look into that real closely.
Okay.
And
quick-
go ahead.
to clarify, the main structure, it's called like a barrel arch, whatever, covers the immediate concrete area. The first, the sails, the next row of sails covers just the first tier of seats. But it's structured, the poster structured so you can continue an additional row of sails at additional cost to cover the next tier. But that we see there was 1.2 million, correct, Al?
Correct.
Plus lighting underneath and
Correct.
perhaps fans.
Their estimate was 900,000 to 1.2 million, so we used the 1.2 million to be safe. That does not include lighting underneath. I'm estimating about 125 to 150,000 for lighting, depending on what we do, whether it's specialty lighting or just enough lighting to get it lit. I do want to add too that this fabric canopy is not rainproof. I mean, it'll slow down the rain. It'll stop it some, but it's not rainproof. It's a shade structure.
Not solid, yeah.
Right. But the cost of a metal roof, number one, would be a lot hotter, but it's going to be a lot higher as well.
This will increase the potential revenue from reserve seating too, right, Sid?
I would believe so, that it would increase. And then I also mentioned that, we could possibly go up on our facility fee, with seating under the canopy.
Sure.
Sid, do you have any economic impact, I mean, numbers that would use to help get things going in that way? Like what more this will bring in? Because, I mean, we can see right here, the river stage, I mean, obviously it's July and it's 100, or August and it's 110 degrees outside. Shade or no shade, old or young, it doesn't matter. I think that's a huge thing with this whole project, but I didn't know if you guys had any economic impact numbers or.
So
something you could show.
that had been discussed during our budget workshop. I think Councilman Hebert brought that up to our budget, and they were supposed to be working on having some of that for us.
Okay.
So we're still waiting on that, but I think that comes with a cost too as well. So we'll check with them and see what the update is on that and bring that forward.
Hey, Sid, I just want to go on comment saying, I made the comment about the balcony. It's on. It's just not close enough. Because I know when there was the Wild West event that they offered some sort of VIP seating piece of this, and so I think this helps with that too. If you are to have some sort of VIP section, people want a little something extra, and so the shade's certainly going to help with that. But it is just something that I want to take into consideration. Is maybe we could kind of target a different group of people who might come to events. If there was a more comfortable section, because there's, the young folks that don't mind sitting in the sun, and those that want a glass of wine, and et cetera, et cetera. And so it is something that I would like to take in consideration, even to the extent of it. And if it's a moot point, if you can't see the stage from the balcony, but I just don't want to miss an opportunity there if we're able to kind of expand the people that we're bringing to the river stage.
Mike.
Microphone.
Do you have any idea of what the shade canopy would bring to us? Because, okay, we have our normal things that come there and we can raise the prices for that. But what can you bring, what new venues will this bring in with the shade canopy?
I don't think people will come just because we do have a new shaded canopy. I don't think that was the purpose of us having it. But I do think it was more of, hey, we're in West Texas. It's pretty hot outside. Summertime has been difficult to be getting concerts to the river stage due to the heat. I think that was one of the effects that we did have with Wild West Fest as well, because
No, I understand that. When I was on the Parks Board, that was the number one public concern was shade. But the thing that I was talking about, with this being so expensive, are you able to bring in new venues? Because I've
You
been
mean
to
new
Wichita
events?
Falls, and I don't remember like a shade canopy, and I remember their complex being really awesome. But is there anything that would help bring in more? That's all I'm talking, because of the fact it's so
you're talking about
expensive.
new events, not venues wise. You're talking about events.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think a promoter says, if you don't have a shade canopy, we won't bring the event to you. So
Right.
Okay.
I definitely think it will keep things from coming here, not having shade for sure, because people say to me, and granted, obviously my position, my job is, well, we have an air-conditioned building, but that's so definitely something has to be done for shade. I mean, safety-wise alone. Festivals, it's a very dangerous thing, pack them in there in the heat. So I believe the shade has to be priority, maybe over storage. I'm not sure. I'm not, but I think that's definitely got to.
Another thing that you're probably going to get into this, but I see box office and concessions addition. Restrooms are a real problem at River Stage. So is that going to be part of the project as well?
we'll get into that part too.
I thought you might.
My opinion on the shade, I've been to many amphitheaters. Majority of the ones that I do visit, they do not have shade over the crowd. I mean, over the seating area. I mean, I'm sure it's a huge expense, and I think they used those funds in other areas. That's just from my personal experience going around to several amphitheaters.
But it's also,
But it is
100 degrees in
accommodating.
May,
It's definitely
and it's
accommodating.
100 degrees all the way almost to October here,
Yeah.
for sure.
I think in some larger markets where they're spending 10 and 12 million or upwards. Milwaukee's a really good example. There's one on the lakefront that's completely covered, and it's 25,000 seats, and they spent when that was built
25,000 seats though.
Yeah, 20. Yeah, when they built that was many years ago, and it was in the millions.
Yeah,
So
I can imagine. So phase one, we're looking at the box office concessions addition, the entry canopy, new paving and relocate fencing at Plaza, relocate fencing for ADA accessibility, remodel existing restrooms, which is an ADA issue, storage dressing room addition, add the production office, remodel the interior, and also the addition of the new loading dock and the canopies. Also in phase one is the extended hillside seating, the new flagstone, the new bar structures, level drive for buses, and also starting the irrigation and landscaping. Sewer lines as well in phase one, electrical work, shade canopy, canopy lighting, and paint all the surfaces, and also the addition of the 2 new concrete ramps and stairs. This is what's in phase one currently right now. So here's the total that we're looking at for year one. Estimated total is approximately 3 million. You can see the breakdown of the construction subtotal, the contingency, and also, and this is just projected AE fees, contractor POs, and approvals as well. So this is just a projection, just so you all are aware. But the total that we're looking at would be approximately 3 million. No, we're going to go to let's go ahead and go to phase two. So in phase two, we were looking at adding the new 16 by 42 restroom building, a new sewer lift station, which would be needed, and the new 48 by 72 restrooms and concessions building, site work, new walks, rework plaza, paving, Arbor Walk and entry towers, the new ticketing office, which would be coming off of Avenue A, and also the new digital signage. In phase two, we're looking at an estimated total, again, of approximately 3 million with the construction. You can see the construction contingency and the fees breakdown as well. Again, it's just an approximate. So I'll go back to, well, I did that bad.
You broke it. We have to buy a new one of these now.
So I wanted to go back to this slide right here so I can just break down again what was in phase one, what we're looking at in phase two for the gold. Obviously, the canopy is there. What you had just discussed was the restrooms, additional restrooms and the concession stands. That's in the gold.
Sid, looking at it from the perspective that we want to make improvements that are going to increase revenues, my personal opinion, that we would look at those additions first. From your experience, what would be those additions that would add revenue to the use of the river stage?
See his opinion. Honestly, it would be the addition of the restrooms and concessions. Even if we did everything that's in the green, that still doesn't take that we would still have long lines for concession stands. We would still have long lines for restrooms. Does it make sense to do all these additions and still have the lines, and having to bring out porta potties for events? We didn't just did all this renovations, but you're still having to bring out 20 porta potties, so you can cut down on those lines. So my personal opinion is we would need the restrooms and concessions before the shade canopy.
I would like to add to that. I'm going to put my ADA coordinator hat on. That is not an ADA accessible facility, so any improvements we do are going to have to bring it into better compliance. There's some monetary limits, so I think a lot of the green, some of the paths and some of those sorts of things are to bring the facility into ADA compliance. So even though they're not going to increase the usage, they are going to be required so that we can continue using it at all, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was just looking at it. I mean, just the question really was was directed at what are these what are the things that we're doing to improve the river stage? What are the ones that are going to have the largest impact on the use of the river stage and its economic viability? Not so much all the other aspects of it, just that one. And you're saying the restrooms?
Concessions building.
Okay.
Because obviously, just having one line that deteriorates somebody. The line's long, the concert's going on at the time. Who wants to stand in line when the concert's going on? And honestly, they have their back turned to the concert too as well. So, my personal opinion is, the addition of the concessions building.
Well, that goes to my point as well about, people are going to concerts in different ways than they used to. Or you look at any sort of professional football stadium or basketball stadium, there's more suite access than there ever was before because people want access to the concessions. And so I would completely agree with you on that point. And then to Teresa's point about ADA, understanding that well, so if we're doing these additions with hot tax, is there not some sort of stipulation that the ADA stuff has to come first or it has to be compliant?
Oh, there it goes. There's like a 20% requirement. So when we're doing any kind of renovation work on a facility, 20% of the costs need to be related to bringing it up to some sort of better compliance with the ADA. After you get beyond that, then it's, it's things that we don't necessarily have to do at that point in time, but there is that 20% of project cost requirement.
Another way to answer that is, since we're spending more than $50,000 on this project, we're required to register with the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation to do an accessibility review and bring the building into compliance. So,
Yeah, so so that needs to be a huge factor as well. It's something we have to do.
yes, and we are addressing it. All that area in the green, everything in Phase 1, a lot of what's in Phase 1 is to address ADA issues.
Josh, would you give us your thoughts on the question about what are from all the aspects that we're looking at, which ones are the ones that are going to create the most revenue or generate more revenue?
Well, I think one we're really missing that is very important to events is parking. There is none, ADA parking alone. I mean, where are they going to park? Is there any plans on that? Or, because I think the closest parking's 2 or 3 blocks away?
It'd be back up here.
Yeah, it's I know, south of that. I didn't, because that's obviously a very big issue with,
That's a great observation. That's a great observation.
We have discussed that at length. Unfortunately, we don't have a plan in place in this scheme, other than the main parking lot, which is up here. People make their way over to the Paseo and make their way down the ramps that come through here. I've walked it all to make sure that it's accessible from here to those parking lots. So there are a couple of places where there are no ramps. So I'm going to visit with operations to make sure that route is accessible. But as far as parking getting closer, I mean, there's really nothing we can do. There is a spot here, I think, by the museum that if we could purchase some of that land, we could create a few handicap spaces there. But parking in general is not doable. The only other option is there's some city land here, but I think there's and we could create something under the bridge and create an extra street. But that's a whole other can of worms there.
There's
You have
another
it
lot
flipped around.
south of there, too, I think.
Well, upside down, yeah. So it's over here and go under the bridge and create another entry on that side. I'm upside down. So the big parking lot I was talking about is over here by the
Yeah, that's what I
the
was
historic.
thinking,
Yeah, it is accessible through the tiered plaza, but
Yeah, all of this is accessible right here, but from here to here, there's a couple of spaces where the sidewalk doesn't have ramps. So that would need to be addressed, but it's a very minor fix. But
Even-
again, it's a long walk.
yeah, even in general, I've walked that with my 4-year-old and it was, and to go with Stokes, I have no problem paying to park $30. I'm 41 and overweight, and so I have no problem. If we could find, that's another added revenue, to charge that much for parking. If you had something, it would probably pay for the lot. But I think parking in general, let alone ADA or just in general public, is a big issue with this venue.
From the ADA perspective, the community members that have talked to me about the River Stage, what they would really like is to have the people who use that venue to have carts or golf carts so they can ride up there, because even if there's a parking lot close, getting up and down those hills for people who have mobility issues but aren't like in chairs or something is a struggle.
That's exactly what we do during July 3rd. We have not golf carts, we have ATVs that transport everybody, VIPs, handicap, whoever, down there, and it works well. It's efficient and it's effective. So to resolve that problem, so does the city buy some ATVs?
Brittany, can we afford
Can we have some city-owned ATVs?
We've got some carts we can rent you.
There's nothing left in the
There
cookie
is
jar
a,
but crumbs.
Yeah.
There is a bus service in town.
Gotcha.
City has access to.
It's pretty amazing because even at the rodeo, people will wait to walk from, I mean, it's not even that far and it's flat, but they'll wait for a cart to take them from here to there. So anyway,
So I do
just
want,
another wrench in the box. Sorry, Sid.
so I do want to, again, go, each one of you all give your opinion on what you think, how you think we should move forward. And
Thank you.
so I'll go ahead and start again with you, Josh, and just let us know what's your opinion on what's been presented.
I think, again, you know, we just discussed the parking for sure. Obviously, the ADA and the concessions probably, you know, need to be addressed. It's a lot of money, and I'm still curious to see, you know, grand scheme, what is it, $5.5 million? You know, what's that look like making that back? You know, what's the time frame of to where we're in the black instead of in the red? So that's just my opinion on where I'm at right now with this.
I'd like to see that concessions building be part of Phase 1,
For sure.
if there's a way we can do it. That's the concessions, the gold concessions, and that's a restroom facility as well?
Yes,
Or is
sir. It's an add-on.
Yeah, I'd really like to see that. I'd like to see that added to Phase 1. Parking, yes, absolutely is a concern, but more immediately concessions and restrooms, I think that's probably going to make a really big difference. Hopefully that's something that you can add to Phase 1. Other than that, I think you proceed post haste.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything I disagree with. Sounds like 88 kind of has to be on the list regardless. If you feel strongly that concessions would start bringing people to the stage, and that's something I would agree that if we could move that into Phase 1, that'd be great. And then I would just ask that, but to the point too, that we need to do something because people have been asking forever, and obviously there's maybe diminished interest, not lack of interest, but diminished interest in going because the accommodations aren't whatever up to the standard that other communities have. I think we all agree with that. But that we get something done to show that there's progress, but also always be thinking of how whatever we're doing now, how does it impact what we might do 5, 10, 15 years from now, and further expansion and kind of getting to that gold standard of, box type seating or something that may be pie in the sky, but I don't want to do anything that's going to keep us from getting there.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone has said so far. They stole my material. But I agree exactly with what has been already said. I can't think of anything different to say.
I also agree with what they're talking about. If you can't do the full concession over here on the one side, can you at least finish the update of the restrooms that are closer to the old concession over on the other side, where you've got the women in gold? Yeah. I don't see any reason not to do that all fully first, but at least do that if you don't have enough money.
So the problem is, this is the existing restroom here, the men's and women's. So the idea is to get more restrooms because this facility is way under
Right.
what code requires, but it's kind of everything. But
Does
so we're talking about in addition to adding the restrooms and concessions here, I was going to add another restroom building here, make it strictly women's, and turn the other one into strictly men's, and have 2 facilities up here. The problem is, and one of the reasons we moved this into Phase 2, we had a pot of money to do Phase 1. All of this is downhill, so all of this uses
lift
lift
station.
stations to get everything back up back up the hill.
Yeah, because I saw that the
The
lift station
the
was
lift
in-
station is at
was
its,
in
ma-
phase two.
is at capacity. It also handles the municipal pool, so whenever they drain the
Okay.
pool, it overflows at lift station, it's at capacity. So before we can add any restrooms at all, whether it's this one or this one, we have to replace the lift station, and that's $1 million by itself.
Yeah,
so-
maybe that should be considered before the canopy.
Right, so that's.
And I'm the one, and Carl knows this, I'm the one that's big on the shade, but maybe that should be considered before
Yeah.
the canopy.
So this building, I've estimated about $750,000, just based on square footage numbers. It's not designed yet, it's just square footage numbers. So 750,000 plus the $1 million for the lift station. You can see we're at 1.8 plus a few extra, design work, all that stuff. We're talking about close to 2 million. The canopy itself is 1.2 million. So that's something else to consider, but whether one brings you more bang for your buck than the other, that's for other people to decide.
Yeah, the
Al.
combination of the lift station, the restroom is gonna be more expensive than shade, but
The lift station, does it provide additional services outside of just the river stage? Does it have other usages?
To my knowledge, it's only for the river stage and the pool. Well, the existing one. is-
No, the
And the
new
new
one.
one, correct.
Yeah.
Right, what else will it do besides,
To my knowledge, that's just the same thing, it's just more capacity.
okay, so it doesn't have additional usage to outside of the river stage?
I don't
Okay.
believe so.
Okay.
Sid, I know you've already thought about this, but this is one of those things that once we get the canopies done and once the project is finished, we need to throw a huge, huge party. I mean, a huge party, on the level of the old Blaine's picnic, okay? Yeah, so the bigger the better, because that's a big deal.
No comment.
Okay, I think we've beat this one. Was there anybody?
I do want to mention one more thing. It would be great for you all to come to the next Coastal DC meeting, which is next Thursday at,
I don't remember the time.
I will send an update to you all. It's on Wednesday, sorry. 8:30. 8:30 in the morning. I think you all should know it's going to be at the East Mezzanine,
Well,
On the what is it, at the 29th,
28th,
28th.
28th at 8:30?
Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be in town.
I'll be at,
That's okay. You can
But
get
I will be
Roswell.
bringing notes from what you had spoke about to them as well.
well, just
I
for
can-
clarification,
Yeah, I can give it to you.
Josh, so when you talk about the shade or the restrooms, which,
Sorry, after discussion, absolutely restrooms.
okay,
That's what I wanted to jump in there, after further discussion. I didn't look through far enough to see what phase that was in, but, again, with my experience with the rodeo, it's really bad when that Coliseum's backing up, and it's really bad, and that is way more important than being cool. I agree 100% that lift station is, and the bathrooms should be key, or should be probably number one, because there's nothing worse that will tarnish a venue reputation than that.
Long
We get
lines.
hammered pretty good every year, because it doesn't get hit like that until
Yep.
we're in there. So, anyway, yes, thanks, Carl.
That's it.
okay. Does that conclude this agenda
Minutes.
item number
Future agenda items.
4? Number 5, future agenda items. I'd like to get updates. I know we've done this not too long ago, but what is happening on the marketing front? What's happening there coming into this new year with the new budget? What are we doing there? So could we invite Mr. McLaughlin, and is he still, I suspect he's still doing the marketing for
Yes.
the city on that front? And then also on the concessions, can we have San Angelo hosts come in and talk to us about what they're doing and give us an opportunity to talk to them about concessions?
No problem.
We can understand Carlo through his mask. That's my man.
Oh, well,
I would
that's
want
under-
to. I want to see kind of because this is great and everything, but I want to what we're doing until we get to this point with our other venue, like bringing in events right now. With what we have right now, I'd like to maybe discuss what we can do with or what we are doing to bring new stuff in as we sit right now before, because obviously this is time away.
Yeah, just a
anyway, if we
point
could
of-
put that on there.
In terms of clarification, and I'm kind of asking more than because I really don't know the answer. Is McLaughlin Citywide responsible for recruiting events, as Josh just mentioned, or whose responsibility falls in that realm, in that space?
McLaughlin doesn't work
Just
on giving
advertising.
events. In terms of marketing, like bringing in events,
Right.
Civic Events doesn't take an active role in that. It's more of a passive role. If folks want to come in, we facilitate the request to use our facilities.
So there is no one
If
actively doing
anyone,
that?
it's the DMO, the Destination
Oh,
Marketing
DMO.
Organization.
Okay.
Dummy.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
that's- 'cause
sorry.
I was gonna say, like, who if they want to do a concert right now at the River Stage, who would they contact?
They would contact myself.
Okay, but there's nobody from
That's
us,
goes out
from
and
COSA going out saying,
No.
In other words, we're not calling.
we're not technically we're not calling, but personally I do make a few calls to promoters and past promoters and people that I know in the industry and just see what's available and if it's possible that they can swing through this market. Obviously, I do try to go, like I said, through some of the older promoters that have brought events to the River Stage. Unfortunately, most promoters have certain artists that they particularly work with. Let's per se Cody Johnson. Cody Johnson played at the River Stage several times, but then he tried to bring Cody Johnson back, and Cody Johnson's like, "Nah, I don't do River Stage amphitheaters no more." At that, we rather do coliseums and arenas, in that style. But I do try to reach out to other promoters and see what type of events, and that goes for all venues. That doesn't just go for the River Stage. That does go for the Coliseum and other additional areas.
So with that said, should we be looking at a joint meeting possibly with DMO and having that conversation? Would that be appropriate, Carl?
We could probably have Jeremy come, maybe with some of his staff, just to talk strategy about how they can help us a little more.
I think it would be good. I think we're at a spot where we're not on the way to anywhere, but we kind of are, but we could catch bands coming. King and Country, when they played the
right.
Coliseum, 2 weeks later, they were at Rodeo Houston in front of 75,000. Right. So, and we caught them coming through on the way to Bryan, Texas. But, I think there would be some opportunity there to
think
catch
so.
these guys coming
From
through.
a future agenda perspective, can we look at some of these discussion points?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll make sure we bring that to the board for our next future meeting.
Anybody else have?
No?
I was going to say, I think Sid does a really good job of trying to catch people that are going to be coming through. Sometimes it works out.
It's tough.
Sometimes it doesn't.
It's a tough industry, like you said. We're
Yeah.
we're off the beaten path for most of these guys.
Right.
We're lucky to be able to get some of the acts that we've been able to have. But it is a tough job to be able to bring some of these artists to San Angelo.
Yes, sir.
But when it does work, it's a great
works.
thing.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
great thing, So it is that is some good further discussion to have to talk about marketing and how we can market our venues a little bit better, because on our visit we did notice that they have some marketing entities that are able to help them facilitate these events, and unfortunately it just falls on myself to try to bring what I can to the city.
Okay.
Our trip to Wichita Falls, CVB, our DMO, they were located in the same building. They almost shared offices, like we once did years ago here at this facility. So there's a lot of synergy in Wichita Falls with their convention center and CVB. So I think we do need to work closer together.
Amen.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
awesome.
Cool.
All
You
right.
guys.
Well, with that said, then, next item is adjournment. If anyone has any other questions or comments, I call for adjournment.
I'll second.
Second? All agree? Yes.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.